Hello Internet, this is Marko. In our last video, we discussed how Cover Corporation's stock dropped 46% over the last 6 months. Today, we'll look a little closer at the revenue and forward-looking statements made by Cover Corporation's management. It's important to note, while people like VTuber Sensei have once again touted big growth and exceptional performance, these statements fall flat as those comments were published the exact same day before the markets opened and investors reacted to the litany of troublesome data. Sorry, VTuber Sensei, you really gotta look beyond the talking points. Cover opened the yearly report by stating, during the fiscal year under review, despite signs of a recovery in demand for entertainment, the outlook for the economic environment in Japan and overseas continued to be uncertain due to rising prices, fluctuations in foreign exchange rates, and other factors. I applaud Cover for recognizing the economic factors of their country having a profound influence on their company and stock price. However, this statement only carries so much weight. For those of you who have followed my channel, you know that over the past fiscal year, the burden of economic factors only hit Japanese markets in their first quarter. And while many companies continue to feel the fallout of the Japanese rate hikes and stock market sell-off far past September, Cover Corporation had an excellent second quarter anchored by the surprise card game success. They even raised their forecast projections at the end of October. Part of the shortcomings become clear when you begin looking at the numbers. But first, I want to make one thing abundantly clear. We need to distinguish what the difference is between revenue and profit. Revenue is the total amount of income generated by the sale of goods or services related to the company's primary operation. A great example would be this page of merchandise for Henya. Broadly speaking, when someone buys an item off this page, it's a sale. That sale is part of her revenue, otherwise known as money generated by the VTuber and or their company's business. That's before subtracting any fees, taxes, cost of making the item, shipping, or marketing. Once you strip away all the costs, you finally see what's being earned by what's left. This doesn't account for their electricity, utilities, platform fees, equipment, software, artwork, or anything else. So while adding up total sales or total revenue is a fine starting point when examining a company, you need to examine the other components, including how that revenue is being used and handled. According to Cover's fiscal year data and report, the business year ending in 2025 should have been positive. Despite the seasonality of slow revenue in quarters 1 and 2, they had solid returns. Quarter 3 had an unexpectedly strong performance compared to its previous quarter, but then the company's performance sputtered through the final 3 months despite hosting their largest fan festival to close out the year. If you keep defining the difference between revenue and profit in mind, you begin to see where things began to unravel. First, we see the depreciation and amortization skyrocket at the beginning of Q3. This is an added side effect of Cover absorbing the developmental costs for HoloReality, and this will continue until they build enough incentives to have either a microtransaction or subscription service with the ability to pay or offset the cost. Our first glimpse into the future shows quite a mixed picture, and it's a picture that paints a desperate need for organization and optimization in order to shed the waste in operating costs. Current investments being implemented will temper the company's profit levels for the first half of the year and hopefully return to their 2025 levels in the second half. from earlier this year made mention of the board members and executive members being assigned to specific roles within the company for better organization. This wasn't just ceremony and top brass nonsense. This signaled significant restructuring and organizational changes within the company and assigning oversight to each department. The mention of personnel reassignments, business process reviews, and optimization of SG&A costs and strengthening of earnings base all signal what I pointed out in previous videos about the spending and SG&A that exploded in recent quarters. The revamping of SCM, short for supply chain management, will be a huge step for shipping merchandise. Still, short term, the company is concerned about potential drops in merchandise sales, which is understandable. The US accounts for nearly 1/3 of the company's revenue. Cover already has several products under development, and with the current plans wanting to stretch further into the US market, they've decidedly forecast to temper expectations by focusing on operations that balance growth and investment and profitability, and laying the foundation for accelerated growth in the next fiscal year and beyond. This would be ideal given the amount of funds, material, and manpower already invested into current projects and operations that have yet to produce returns on investments and assets. Cover may continue to hit new highs in revenue, yet 87% of that revenue still goes to pay the bills, regardless of how much they make. Their valuation as a company continues to fall. Their stock price continues to collapse every year when they're supposed to be entering in their strongest quarter. Their competition is making twice the profit while focusing on the Japanese and Asian markets. What does this say about Cover Corporation? Now, Cover Corporation does still have a strong foundation. Their balance sheets still reflect a high free cash flow, and they hold no known debt. They can still meet their obligations, and they are self-sufficient while generating a positive revenue. 2025 to 2026 may not be a huge year for them. However, I believe it should remain positive.